The findings were shocking. Lucid dreamers could in fact become consciously aware while sleeping. And if consciousness is viewed as part of a larger holographic field. Hello guys, it's me Daphne and welcome back to my series. I read the book so you don't have to. In today's video, we'll be going over part 2 of the book, The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot. Part 2 includes chapters 3, 4, and 5, and they are all quite long, so I'm gonna be summarizing instead of going over each chapter in detail like I did last time, because we don't have all day. In part 2 of the book, Michael discusses one of the most fascinating implications of the holographic model, which is that human consciousness is far more interconnected than conventional science suggests. In part 1 of the book, Michael discusses little piece theory that the brain may actually process information holographically, and David Boham's idea that the universe itself may actually be structured like a giant hologram. If those theories are correct, then consciousness may not be confined to individual brains, but instead our minds may all be connected to a larger field of information, just like every fragment of a hologram contains the full information for the entire image. Michael uses information from dream studies, psychiatry, psychology, and consciousness studies to argue that many unusual things, such as telepathy, lucid dreaming, mystical experiences, etc., may be easier to understand within a holographic framework. Chapter 3 focuses on the relationship between the holographic model and human psychology. You see, traditional psychology assumes that consciousness exists entirely within the brain, and that every individual mind is separate from all others. This is what we were all taught to believe in. But Michael here is like, no.
No, don't do that!
No, we have to re-examine that. He challenges this assumption by examining evidence that appears to suggest that minds may be interconnected at a deeper level. One of the most important examples discussed in this chapter is the dream telepathy research conducted by psychiatrist, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Montague. Let's call him Monty Oman, and psychologist Stanley Krippner, you may know of him, at the Maimonides Medical Center in New York. The purpose of the research was to see whether information can be transferred from one person to another without using any known sensory methods. They believed that dreams may actually provide an ideal testing ground for this, because the sleeping mind may be more receptive to receiving subtle forms of information. The experiments were carefully designed. Participant 1 was called the receiver. The receiver participants would sleep in a soundproof laboratory room, while researchers would monitor their brain activity using EEG equipment. And then in the other room, we had the sender. The sender would be shown a randomly selected image, usually a painting or a photograph. And the sender's task was to focus really intensely on the image throughout the night and mentally transmit it to the sleeping patient, the receiver. Whenever the receiver entered REM sleep, REM, which is the stage on sleeping where you have really vivid dreams, the researchers would wake them up and ask them to describe their dreams in detail. These dream reports were recorded and then later compared with the target image by independent judges who had no prior knowledge of the experiment. The findings were shocking. In many cases, the dream descriptions actually contained symbols, themes, and images that all closely resembled the target picture. I'll give you one very famous example. The image showed Native American dancers, and the dreams which were then reported involved feathers, people dancing, and ceremonies. Statistical analysis suggested that the correct target image was identified significantly more often than it would be expected just by random chance. Although critics did argue that those results were not definitive proof of telepathy, Michael viewed them as proof that consciousness may actually operate through a deeper level of connection than traditional psychology recognizes. Another important topic that is discussed in chapter 3 is lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming occurs when a person becomes aware that they are dreaming while being within the dream itself. For many years, scientists doubted whether lucid dreaming is actually real, because there seemed to be no way for dreamers to communicate with researchers while asleep. But this changed through the work of psychologist Stephen LaBerge. LaBerge developed a method that allowed the dreamers to communicate with the researchers while asleep. Participants were first trained to recognize when they were dreaming, and then perform specific eye movements, such as moving their eyes left to right several times. Since the eye muscles remain active during REM sleep, these movements could be detected by monitoring equipment in the laboratory. The experiments demonstrated that lucid dreamers could in fact become consciously aware while sleeping, as well as remembering instructions and even intentionally communicating with the researchers while asleep. This provided scientific evidence that consciousness can in fact remain active in ways previously thought to be impossible. For Michael, lucid dreaming suggested that consciousness is not limited to ordinary waking reality. If people could become aware within a dream that is created entirely within the mind, then reality itself may be more flexible and multi-layered than conventional psychology assumes. The overall argument of Chapter 3 is that dream telepathy, lucid dreaming, and other unusual psychological phenomena become a lot easier to understand if consciousness is viewed as part of a larger holographic field, rather than a collection of isolated individual minds. Chapter 4 shifts its focus towards altered states of consciousness and the work of psychiatrist Stanisław Grof. Grof spent decades studying extraordinary states of awareness through psychotherapy, psychedelic research, and later through a technique nowadays known as holotropic breathwork. His goal was to understand what exactly happens when people enter states of consciousness that differ dramatically from ordinary waking awareness. Unlike many researchers who dismissed unusual experiences as hallucinations, Grof carefully documented thousands of cases and searched for recurring patterns. His findings were remarkable. Many participants reported reliving childhood experiences with a great amount of detail, including events they had long forgotten. Others described vivid memories associated with their own birth, something that conventional psychology considered impossible. And even more surprising were what Grof labeled as transpersonal experiences. During those experiments, people reported feeling connected to other people, identifying with animals, reliving historical events, or even experiencing a profound sense of unity with the entire universe. One of Grof's most important observations were that people from different backgrounds, very different backgrounds, frequently described similar experiences. Whether participants came from different cultures, different religions, different educational backgrounds, the patterns that emerged were often strikingly alike. Common themes included feelings of timelessness, the disappearance of personal boundaries, encounters with powerful symbolic imagery, a sense of connection with all life, experiences of cosmic unity. You see, traditional psychology tends to explain those experiences as fantasies or products of the unconscious mind. But Grof here was like, no, I respectfully disagree. He believed that those reports suggested that consciousness extends beyond the individual brain. Michael argues that the holographic model offers a possible explanation. Remember, in a hologram, every part contains information about the whole. If consciousness functions similarly, individuals may occasionally gain access to information that exists beyond their personal memories. This interpretation would explain why people sometimes report experiences that seem larger than their own lives. According to Michael, altered states of consciousness may temporarily allow individuals to access deeper levels of the holographic reality, underlying everyday experience. Although these claims remain controversial, Chapter 4 presents Grof's research as actual evidence that consciousness may be far more extensive than conventional science currently recognizes. In Chapter 5, Michael expands the discussion even further. He does that by exploring the ideas of Carl Jung and the concept of the collective unconscious. Jung noticed that similar symbols repeatedly appeared in myths, religions, dreams, and stories across different cultures. And the interesting thing was that those patterns appeared even among societies that had never interacted with each other. To explain this phenomena, Jung proposed the idea of the collective unconscious, a shared psychological layer that exists beneath individual consciousness. Within this collective unconscious, there are archetypes. universal symbolic patterns that shape human thought and behavior. One of the most important archetypes is the hero. The hero represents courage, growth, sacrifice, and transformation. The hero figures live their ordinary lives, face challenges, overcome obstacles, and return wiser than before. Examples include Hercules, Harry Potter, Luke Skywalker. Another major archetype is the wise old man. This figure represents wisdom, knowledge, and guidance. Examples include characters like Merlin or Dumbledore. They often help the hero understand the difficult truth and navigate important challenges. Then we have the great mother archetype. It's giving mommy vibes. She symbolizes nurture, protection, fertility, and creation. This figure often appears in many religious traditions and mythologies, often represented by mother goddesses or maternal figures who care for and sustain life. Then we have the shadow. The shadow represents the hidden aspect of personality that individuals often deny or suppress. Hence, in stories, the shadow is oftentimes cast as the villain. According to Jung, personal growth requires confronting the shadow rather than ignoring it. Many stories portray those archetypes through villains, monsters, or dark versions of the protagonist. And another common archetype is the trickster. Tricksters break the rules. They create chaos and challenge social norms. Characters such as Loki in Norse mythology. The coyote figure in Native American traditions. And even, now this is my personal interpretation, Georgina Sparks. They all represent the trickster archetype. Finally, Jung described the self, which represents psychological wholeness and the integration of all aspects of personality. For Jung, achieving the self was the ultimate goal of psychological development. Michael finds those ideas particularly important because Jung never fully explained where the archetypes originate. Why do similar stories and symbols appear through human history? The holographic model offers a possible answer. If every individual consciousness is actually connected to a larger informational field, then archetypes may emerge because all human minds essentially draw from the same underlying source. Just as every piece of a hologram contains the entire image, every human mind may contain access to universal patterns embedded within the deeper structure of reality. Michael also discusses mystical experiences reported throughout history. Across different cultures and religions, people frequently describe similar experiences of unity, timelessness, unconditional love, and connection with all existence. According to Michael, the remarkable consistency of these reports suggests that they may reflect genuine encounters with a deeper level of reality rather than mere imagination. In the holographic model, mystical experiences may occur when individuals temporarily perceive the interconnected nature of existence temporarily. Chapters 3, 4, and 5 of the Holographic Universe represent Michael's attempt to apply the holographic model to the study of consciousness and psychology. Through dream telepathy experiments, lucid dreaming research, Groff's investigation of altered states, and Carl Jung's theory of archetypes and the collective unconscious, Michael argues that many human mystical experiences point towards a reality that is fundamentally interconnected. The dream telepathy experiment suggests that sometimes information may pass between minds, without conventional communication. Lucid dreaming suggests that consciousness may remain active in unexpected ways. Groff's research indicates that human awareness may extend beyond personal memory and identity. And Jung's archetypes suggest the existence of universal psychological patterns shared across cultures and generations. Together, these ideas support Michael's central claim. Consciousness may not be confined to the brain. Instead, it may be part of a vast holographic field in which every individual is connected to a larger whole. Although many of those theories up to this day remain controversial and are not exactly accepted by mainstream science, Michael's work challenges the reader to reconsider the nature of reality, consciousness, and human potential. Whether or not the theory of the holographic model and the holographic universe is proven correct, these chapters raise profound questions about who we are, how our minds function, and how deeply connected we might be to one another and the universe itself. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching. Make sure to hit that subscribe button because the next week I'll be posting a video on my opinion on OnlyFans as a witch of 6 years from an esoteric perspective. Love you guys.